Mr. Nickelson, thank you for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. Good morning, Stephen.
Well, we're all really in unusual territory. You're running for sheriff for the third time in just a couple of months. How has the campaign changed this time around?
We thought it was so critically important to make sure that the will of the people was done in this sheriff's race, and that's why we filed the election challenge that we did. We're continuing to focus on sharing our message with Caddo Parish voters about why I am the best candidate to serve as the next sheriff of Caddo Parish.
Whenever you raised the election challenge, you basically won at every level of the legal process. Were you surprised by that?
We knew as soon as we learned that two people had voted twice that a one-vote margin required an election challenge to make sure that happened.
Do you think there's a problem with the election system here in Caddo Parish?
I think there is work to be done with the system. You know, election integrity is so critically important. We can't have a democracy if we don't have free and fair elections. What concerned me most about the testimony that came out during the trial is the fact that the Registrar of Voters and the Board of Election Supervisors apparently were, in some cases, intentionally counting votes that were not witnessed as required by law. That testimony came from Board of Election Supervisors President Brenda Traylor.
Are you concerned about the March 23rd election being fair and accurate?
I am hopeful that given the experience we've just had, that everybody involved in the process, including the Registrar of Voters and all the members of the Board of Election Supervisors, will recommit themselves to making sure that the law is followed, and I expect that to happen.
Throughout this legal process, in one of your news conferences, you said you were concerned about division in the city, in the parish, and that we need to come together. What is that division you're talking about?
Look, my concern during the election challenge was that my opponent and some of his supporters unfortunately made this about race. It has nothing to do with race. It had to do with a free election that reflected the will of the people. No one involved in this process, no elected official, no political candidate should make allegations that an election challenge is driven by racial concerns if there's no basis for that accusation.
When you say he and his supporters made instances to race, what specific instances are you talking about?
Well, you certainly are aware of the fact, for example, that the chair of the state Democratic Party suggested that I personally was trying to bring back Jim Crow by challenging this election. That is just as offensive a comment as one person can make to another. It had no basis in truth, and it's just very, very concerning that that was the direction the rhetoric took. It's not good for our community.
Do you think the legal process that you started maybe made it worse?
I think the legal process that we started was absolutely necessary to preserve the integrity of elections. Nothing we did made the division we're talking about worse. Some of the rhetoric that came from the other side of the political aisle, I believe, did.
Do you think that you can be the guy to kind of heal that situation we've been having here in this area after this, if you do win this election?
Look, I do. I do. And I think it's, again, I want people to judge me based on my character, right, and not on my skin color. I want people to judge me based on the work that I've done as an elected official.
A case your counsel referenced in this whole process was Atkins versus Huckabee in Red River Parish back in 2000. The sheriff's race came down to 3 votes in that one, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The challenger won that legal process, but then lost the ensuing election by around 1,000 votes. Are you concerned that same thing could happen to you? It could backfire?
I don't think it's going to backfire, but look, we know this is going to be an incredibly close election.
Let's say it's another close election, separated by tens of votes. Would you challenge it again?
No. Look, I'm confident that this election is going to be performed correctly with the additional scrutiny that it's going to receive. I can't speak for Mr. Whitehorn, but whatever the election result is on election night, that's what it will be for Caddo Parish.
One of the main things that opponents have said about you is you have no law enforcement experience, only serving in the Shreveport City Council, and you've been an attorney. Why are you the man for the top law enforcement position job in Caddo Parish?
The sheriff is not a patrol deputy. The sheriff does not arrest people personally except on rare occasion. I believe Sheriff Praters told me that in his 24 years he arrested only one person who committed a foolish traffic violation that he couldn't ignore. So the job of the sheriff, okay, is to manage a $70 million budget. It's to manage the more than 600 people, deputies that work for the sheriff's office, and to set policy. My role as a city councilman and as a lawyer prepares me very well to do that. And look, Stephen, I want people to understand that one of the reasons I'm in this race and I'm committed to winning it is that I do not trust the people who controlled the Perkins administration to control the sheriff's office. I was one of the people on the council with principal oversight authority during the 4 years that Adrian Perkins was our mayor. And from the insurance scandal that started it to the recycling $10 million giveaway to an unqualified contractor that was attempted, I was in the middle of all of that and making sure that they were not able to divert public resources for private gain.
Going back to what you said about Sheriff Prater, how he only arrested one person in his time as sheriff, he also had a law enforcement background. Do you think that was essential into making him the sheriff he is today?
I don't think having a law enforcement background is essential because there are many sheriffs around the state who don't and who have done excellent work. Don Hathaway preceded Sheriff Prater as the sheriff of Caddo Parish. He was an insurance man and the public works commissioner, so had a very similar background to mine in that respect. The body he served on was like the city council under our previous form of government.
Mr. Whitehorn served as the chief of police in Shreveport, as you know, state police superintendent, Western District Marshal. Do you think he did a good job in those positions?
Look, what I know about Henry Whitehorn is what I learned when I was on the city council. He and I worked together on a near daily basis. That's the most recent experience that he has. That's the experience that he rarely talks about on the campaign trail. And that's the basis of my concern about him becoming the next sheriff of Caddo Parish.
Do you think he was an effective law enforcement leader?
I'll say this, Mr. Whitehorn had opportunities as the chief of police and in the other positions you have mentioned to engage in innovative policing and to make this community safer. I don't believe that he did. One of my principal concerns about what Mr. Whitehorn has said on the campaign trail is that he doesn't want to trust our deputies to exercise their constitutional authority to stop people who are believed to be committing crimes. We've had a long conversation about that.
What are some specific plans you want to implement day one and then work on in your 4-year tenure if you are elected?
We have got to, in this community, make sure that violent criminals are punished the first time. We've got to make sure that drug dealers go to prison the first time if they're dealing dangerous drugs like fentanyl, methamphetamine, or cocaine. That's not happening now, right? It is routine for drug dealers in this community to get probation. It is routine for individuals who are caught with guns to have the gun charges dismissed and be convicted on less serious charges. I'm also committed to fully leveraging technology to make sure that our deputies are as efficient and effective as they can be.
So what kind of technology are we talking about? What are some specific things you want to see?
Well, one example is increased use of drones in high-speed chases. That's something that's beginning to happen already, but it's something that could be used additionally. I'd also like to see generative artificial intelligence used to manage and evaluate some of the data that we collect so that we can target criminals appropriately. Those are just a couple of ideas that I'd like to implement.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Stephen, I was glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.